Finally, in the few moments I have left, Mr. Rawdon, let me run through some of the practical problems that the government has not addressed in putting forward what is really a very glib response to making cuts in this area of civil legal aid. And these are 10 that in the course of 10 minutes occurred to me, and they've occurred clearly from what's been said to my friends as well here today. Are other agencies going to pick up the cases which are no longer going to be covered by legal aid? We're told by the government that CPAG, Age UK, Shelter, the Disability Alliance will be. Have those organisations been approached by the government, and what have they said in response to that? We're told that other funding streams will. Well, I began my remarks by talking about what had happened in my own constituency. That is a picture all over the country. Other funding streams have already been cut. Law centres are surviving on LSC funding because their local authority funding has already been cut. We've heard explained, I think very clearly by several members, the fact that these are complex matters and often interrelated matters, that where there is a debt problem, that can often arise because there has been a benefit problem or an employment problem, and tackling one but not tackling the other is not an option. And what about the economic viability of the not-for-profit sector? If you're making these swinging cuts but cherry-picking those parts that will remain, is that feasible? I frankly don't believe that it is feasible, that many of these firms, many law centres or private firms will survive under these situations. The issue of self-representation has been raised by ministers in response to this. In response to a parliamentary question for Coventry South, the legal aid minister said, in most cases, this is talking about welfare benefits, individuals will be able to prepare their appeal to the first tier tribunal without formal legal assistance. I'm afraid that is living in cloud cuckoo land, and the government's own figures do not support that. 40% of cases going to the incapacity benefit appeals are successful, unrepresented, 67% if represented. One of the solicitors' firms which have briefed us in preparation for this debate says that they have an 82% success rate challenging employment and support allowance cases as against a national average of 40% where there is no representation. The gateway has been mentioned. There is nothing wrong with telephone advice, but it cannot take the place. It cannot take the place of advice that is provided in person. Documents cannot be shown. People who have learning difficulties or language difficulties simply cannot use telephone in that way. Vulnerable people are not considered in this, unlike in the Bradley report in 2009, which dealt with people with learning difficulties and mental health difficulties in the criminal law system. No regard seems to be given to that here. Little regard has been given to the equality impact assessment here and the figures that my friend for Westminster North gave. The eligibility criteria are so restrictive that very, very few people are going to get any access to free advice here at all. The cost issues have been raised. The fact that this is in effect false economy, this is going to cost more in the long run. And another point which hasn't been touched on is the fact that courts and tribunals are going to be clogged with litigants in person, and practitioners, as the Solicitor General has been for many, many more years than I was, will realise that this will be a nightmare for the judicial and the court system. Those are only a few issues that need to be raised. I hope that the Solicitor General can answer many of those points this morning. If not, I hope he will write to my friend and to other members who have taken part in that debate to deal with these issues. This is only the beginning of this debate, which will go through to the end of the consultation period in the first instance. But I hope that the government will realise there are serious issues which have not been properly addressed in the Green Paper and which need to be addressed if we are to have a continuing civil legal aid system in this country.
Edward Garnier.
Mrs. Rawdon, thank you very much indeed, and may I congratulate the Honourable Lady for introducing this most important subject to the Chamber this morning. She is, as the Honourable Gentleman for Hammersmith said, the founder and the chair of the Legal Aid All-Party Parliamentary Group, and I'm sorry to hear that she is stepping down, but I hope that she will continue to take a close interest in this area of public policy. I think it's fair to say, and I say this in the absence of the Minister my honourable friend, the member for Huntingdon, I think it's fair to say that this is an acutely difficult area of public policy, and everyone who has spoken today, either directly or who has intervened, such as my honourable friend for New Forest East, have come to this debate with no sense of political malice. I think in all our constituencies, we find areas where there is a huge need for legal assistance, both advice and representation. And I would not like to think that my reply to this debate, albeit that it is going to be incomplete, and albeit that it is not going to come with the knowledge that my honourable friend for Huntingdon would have brought to it, since I have taken this, I was going to say taken this case on, but taken on this reply for the government from another department, indeed normally a rather non-speaking department. I hope that honourable members will understand that we are at the very beginning of the consultation process, which will, as the honourable gentleman for Hammersmith said, end in February. So I urge all those who have spoken, and all those who have listened, and all those who have contacts with others outside this chamber, to urge them to participate in the consultation process. It is a deliberately lengthy consultation process so that the government can receive the benefit of the advice from those who know a great deal more about it than I do, the benefit of the experiences of those who provide advice and assistance. And it wasn't just the Honourable Lady for Westminster North, although she did do this, but many other honourable members have today praised, and quite properly and justly praised, the work of their own CABs, the work of their own not-for-profit advice providers in their constituencies. One doesn't have to represent a constituency such as perhaps the Honourable Lady for Westminster North or the Right Honourable Gentleman for Tottenham. You don't have to represent a constituency which is on its face challenged, economically, socially. You can represent a constituency such as mine, which on its face appears to be prosperous, but actually has pockets of deprivation, actually does have great need for the sort of social welfare. Yes?
I'm very grateful. Just quickly, I would like to associate myself with many of the comments made, especially by the member for Swindon South. But one particular issue which is of concern to myself as a member for a very rural constituency is the real possibility that we will end up with the hinterland of my constituency of Aberconwy not having any legal aid representation whatsoever, with people having to make a 40, 50 and 60 mile round trip in order to access support. That's a concern that I have. Will that be addressed by the department?
Edward Garnett.
Well, I'm sure that my honourable friend will make sure that the Ministry of Justice will address those points, and I'm sure that he will want to participate in the consultation process. Should I just deal with the point that's just been made? Another point that occurred to me as I listened to this debate is that none of the arguments that I've heard this morning are new. And indeed, I was making some of them myself as the opposition spokesman for the Lord Chancellor's Department in 1997 through to 1999, when Jeff Hoon was then the government junior minister dealing with this area of public policy. He was introducing proposals which turned into the so-called Access to Justice Bill of 1999, which I suggested to him at the time would have had Attlee spinning in his grave. Now, to be in government is to have to make decisions. It is to have to make choices. And the main factor that we are facing at the moment is the economic difficulties that the national budget faces. We are paying every day in interest payments alone £120 million. Wouldn't it be better if we could spend that £120 million on legal advice and representation? But we have to make choices, and I don't think the Honourable Lady ducked that. She said, in essence, that she accepts that choices have to be made. She accepts that reductions in public expenditure have to be made. It's the pace and it's the area in which the cuts are made where she finds the point of controversy. I'll give way to the Right Honourable Gentleman.
Stephen Timms.
For giving way. He's right to praise the work of Citizens Advice Bureau, but CAB say a quarter of their funding nationally at the moment comes from legal aid. That will be entirely lost if these proposals go through unamended. Is the government looking at an alternative way of funding welfare advice services across the country?
Edward Garney.
2 points. Yes, of course it is, and that's the point of the consultation, and he will, I hope, participate in that consultation. Second point is that CABs are not just funded by central government. They are also funded by other funding streams, and some are funded by as many as 15 streams. Now, that's not a complete answer to his question, but the answer to his question, which I will throw back to him as a former Treasury Minister, is where do we find the money at a time where we're spending £120 million a day on interest alone? So we do have to make difficult choices. And I accept that none of the answers that the government is coming up with over the course of this period, and I'll give way to the Honourable Lady in a minute, is going to provide anybody with complete satisfaction. Nobody is going to leave this debate, nobody is going to go home for Christmas dancing in the streets over what I have said. However, we have to be realistic about this, and we have to face the hard choices which the previous government have left us. I give way to the Honourable Lady.
Karen Book.
To the Minister, and I was in error actually in my introduction in not welcoming the fact that he has stepped in, I know, and graciously to cover the Minister for whom this is his area. But just to ask him if he could ensure, in passing a message on to the Minister, that one of the questions I raised, I would like a response to. The assumption underlying the Green Paper in this area is that there is some mythical capacity in the voluntary and pro bono sector to deal with the areas of service where legal aid will be withdrawn. Now, if we are accepting that there are cuts that will have major impact on services, is it not his belief, would he not agree with me, that we have to be honest about what these implications are and not effectively massage away those implications by saying somehow somebody mythical is going to pick this all up? What estimate has the government made of that capacity?
The government have commissioned an impact assessment which was published at the same time, I believe, as the Green Paper itself. But let me do a deal with that. Yes, of course, I accept that we are facing difficult choices, and I don't shrink from those. But secondly, would she accept from me that not every problem in life that we face as constituency members of Parliament, coming from our constituents, has to be dealt with by a lawyer? Not every problem, be it debt, be it housing, be it family, be it some other area of dispute, has to be dealt with by a lawyer. So we need to refocus our attention about finding solutions. I don't shrink from saying that these are difficult areas. I don't shrink from saying that sometimes there will have to be legal assistance provided from the state. But we have to narrow the scope. We have to narrow the ambit of the taxpayer's responsibility for providing legal advice and legal representation. But that does not mean to say that others in other areas of the community cannot come forward and provide the assistance that is so desperately needed and has been so clearly indicated by other honourable members. I'm sorry that this type of debate really requires rather longer, but I hope that she will take this debate outside into the wider community so that the government can have the benefit of her and her colleagues' views between now and next February.